needed to go through Samaria. So he came to a city of Samaria, which is called Sychar, near the plot of ground that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. Now Jacob's well was there. Jesus, therefore, being wearied from his journey, sat thus by the well. It was about the 6th hour. A woman of Samaria came to draw water. Jesus said to her, "Give me a drink." Now, Jesus had to get out of Judea. Obvious reasons. He was getting popular, famous. What happened to his cousin John when he got famous? You know, he got thrown in jail and then executed. We knew that was going to happen. We know it's going to happen to Jesus down the road. We didn't want it to happen right then. So he got out of town. When he did, he took his disciples on a road trip where nobody would follow, which was to Samaria. It said he had to go through Samaria. Well, there's two possible reasons there. One, he was going up to Galilee, so instead of crossing the Jordan, going up the east bank, and then crossing back over, he went straight up through Samaria. One, that would have saved him time. Two, nobody would follow him, because a good Jew wouldn't go into Samaria. So, when my parents were there, they asked a guide about that. He said Jews would go through Samaria. It would waste time and money. So, who knows? But while he was there, he sat down at that well and did what we would do. He engaged somebody in conversation. What was the point of the conversation? Where are you going when you die? I heard a story of one man talking to another, an older man talking to a younger man. He says, "Well, what do you want to do with your life?" And he says, "I want to get me a good job." Then what? "Well, I want to get married, raise a family." Then what? "I want to retire." Then what? That's where we want to take our conversations, right? We want to get to that then, that final then what would be. Because we know the answer to that. That's what we're all about. Okay? Now, when he sat down with this lady, remember, God understands. God understands. And he knew that lady. And we could go into all kinds of details. I could talk about that literally for the next 60 minutes if I want to. I'm not going to. Read that on your own. You know, just sit down and read that story. And as you do, it kind of unfolds like a flower. But then, God understands and God has a plan. He had a plan. He had a plan before he ever left Judea to head up into Samaria. He was going to do something. This trip was on purpose. Okay? We know that. Now, let's go to the next stop in this chapter. If you would, go over with me to verse 43, and you'll turn the page for that. That's on page 1078 in the Pew Bible. And this is where he leaves Samaria and goes on to Galilee. Verse 43. Now after the 2 days, because he had stayed 2 days in Sychar to talk to the people there, he went from there and went to Galilee, for Jesus himself testified that a prophet has no honor in his own country. Now at first here, it seems as if Jesus is spinning his wheels. Why would he go into his home area where he was going to be turned down? Why? Because no matter what, he's still a little kid that ran the sidewalks as a kid. If they had sidewalks, the dirt streets and nothing else. Okay? We also know from reading on that there in his home area, they turned deaf ears to him at best. That they tried to shove him off a cliff one time, you know. But the thing about not being accepted as anything but, you know, the little kid that you were in your hometown, what is true? It was true of Jesus. Okay? But God understands. God has a plan. So let's find out why he went to Galilee. Go on over just down there to where it says a nobleman's son is healed, verse 46. So Jesus came again to Cana in Galilee, where he had made the water wine. There was a certain nobleman whose son was sick at Capernaum. When he heard that Jesus had come out of Judea into Galilee, he went to him and implored him to come down and heal his son, for he was at the point of death. Now, he went to Galilee knowing that they wouldn't accept his message. So why did he go? Why did he go? I want to tell you about a friend of mine. Some of you, let's see, Sue would have met, I think. He was here Christmas Eve with his family. Dave and his wife, Krista, have 5 kids or 6, Zion?
5.
5. Yeah. Well, Dave is a gospel musician, traveling, like Gaither type people sing. And many years ago, before he met his wife, Krista, he was in a slump. He was kind of feeling bad. Because as a gospel musician, you go from church to church encouraging the saints. Okay. But you never do anything real. And he was in this slump. Because he doesn't stop and disciple people and bring them to Christ and then help them to grow. He just goes from church to church. Dave took a located ministry out in Missouri, did that for a few years, and realized that's not what his gift is, so he went back to being a gospel singer with his wife and their 5 kids. But anyway, at this point, Dave was still single. And they had just finished an evening concert. This would have been his mom, his dad, his brother, and him. And they had shaken hands. His dad, as usual, his dad was a very good friend of mine. He's inside still talking, and Dave's out putting all this stuff away in the trailer, the speakers and all this stuff. And as he's doing this guy stops and engages him in conversation there on the sidewalk. And it was kind of half confrontational, hey, you're a Christian, that kind. So Dave did what we would do. He just starts talking, about that eternal destination. Where are you going? Say, you can talk all you want, but you got to think about this. They talked for 10 or 15 minutes. Well, as often happens, they were back at that church to do a concert a little over a year later. They're standing in the back shaking hands and selling CDs and that kind of thing. And this guy comes up and introduces himself. He said, "Do you remember me?" And Dave says, "Not really." The guy says, "Well, probably not, because it was dark, but you and I talked on the sidewalk." He said, "I got thinking about what you said. I came back to church here." He says, "Now I'm a Christian." And Dave said, "Isn't that something? You think you don't really make a difference. And here, what he had done, he planted a seed. God understood. God had a plan, right? So while the people in Galilee appeared to have nothing to do with Jesus, Jesus planted a seed with this nobleman's household. He healed the boy without even going to the house. You read the rest of the story. He healed him. Well, what happened to that Roman official? We don't know. It's not in there that we can tell. I guess we'll have to wait till we get to heaven and we'll ask, if we remember to ask. Okay, what's next? Let's go to chapter 5. I'm not going to read all of this either, just the first few verses. Chapter 5, verse 1. After this, there was a feast of the Jews. Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now there is in Jerusalem by the sheep gate a pool, which is called in Hebrew Bethesda, having 5 porches. In these lay a great multitude of sick people, blind, lame, paralyzed, waiting for the moving of the water. For an angel went down at a certain time into the pool, stirred up the water. Then whoever stepped in first, after the stirring of the water, was made well of whatever disease he had. Now a certain man was there who had an infirmity 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he already had been in that condition a long time, he said to him, "Do you want to be made well?" The sick man answered, "Sir, I have no man to put me into the pool when the water is stirred, but while I'm coming, another steps down before me." Jesus said to him, "Rise up, take up your bed and walk." And immediately the man was made well, took up his bed, and walked. You ever read that one before? I hope so. Okay? Now, Anybody else besides me ever bothered by this story? It bothers me. But this man who lay there day by day hadn't been able to move up in the waiting order. He was still in the back of the crowd. Now what's that mean? Well, it means that probably the people that brought him down there in the morning brought him at the last minute. They weren't in any hurry. So as others, got healed and were gone, he never got any closer to the water. Some friends they were that brought him down there, right? How long had this been going on? Almost 40 years. And he'd more or less given up. I would imagine all he could do was to beg for a few coins he might get tossed by the people, the sightseers that came through, because it was a famous place. He had no spirit, he had no hope. And I don't think he was a great guy. Because remember when Jesus saw him a little later, he said, you better stop sinning so that something worse doesn't happen to you. So I don't think he was a particularly great guy. But remember, does God understand? Does God have a plan? Yeah, he does. And at the very least, why would Jesus bother with this guy? Well, that's an easy one. But we need to remember it. That's embarrassing. I'm going to turn that off. I think it's your mom.
Oh, that's not good.
No. No, it isn't. It's Dave.
Oh, that's better.
Yeah. Okay. I'll call him later. I'm sorry. Why would Jesus take time with this guy? Because he's a human. That's his special creation. That's his favorite out of all creation. So if nothing else, Jesus had a tender spot in his heart for any one of his creation. And he couldn't just walk by without at least helping one. He could have just spoken the word and everybody would have been healed, but he healed that one. Okay? Now, right across the border from Wheeling, West Virginia, actually just up the road from Wheeling a little ways, and this happened around 1850. So it was still Virginia then. It was all Virginia. There was a man who was caught carrying a bucket of water on Sunday. And this is a true story. And I don't know exactly the year, but it was around 1850. He was hauled into court the next day, and they fined him for carrying a bucket of water on the Sabbath. You know how much they fined him in 1850? $40. Now I did the math. On purpose. If that was today, it would be $1,100. That's almost as much as a speeding ticket in Van Buren. Yeah, one of our favorite local things there. Why did they take that man and fine him that much money, which would have been 2-3 weeks' pay? Why would they do that? For the same reason as people all of a sudden piled in on Jesus for healing this man on the Sabbath. But Jesus' answer for them is something else. And it's something we're thankful for. Let me ask you this. Does God ever take a day off? I think that's interesting that when he was done creating the world, God took the seventh day and rested. It was the last day of rest he was ever going to have. It was. But he doesn't rest. And Jesus said, hey, while I'm here, I'm going to do this. And by the way, I don't take orders from you. I don't take orders from anybody. He said, we come to agreement on what we're going to do, and we do it. Who is we? Father, Son, Holy Spirit. So he says, guys, I'm not even going to thank you for your input. I'm just going to tell you, be quiet. because God doesn't take a day off. I think that's just neat to think about. You know, he doesn't, no apologies. He said, this is what we do. Okay, now when it comes to the rest of John 5, it just talks about the way people behave, you know. And I think we think about that all the time. I use my two favorite sports, politics and NASCAR racing. Now, if you think about that, these two are exactly alike. Politics and NASCAR racing, they're exactly the same thing. All they do is run in circles and go nowhere. You know, but they also have commentators about the whole thing. You know, and I've also noticed in watching this, and I'm as guilty of this as the next guy. There's the conspiracy theories. Well, that's going on because of this, and it's going on because of that. And I've noticed something else because I've been watching it for a few years. That those guys are always, those conspiracy theories, always exactly right because they talk about it after it happened. They just make up their story to fit what just happened. You know. But just, you know, I'll give you another one. That's, you know, where they make up stories and they're wrong. Golf. Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods was going to be just like Jack Nicklaus and Arnold Palmer. He was going to win everything out there until he was too old to play golf anymore. That's what all the experts agreed on. Whoops. That didn't work out. You know. But we've got to remember, God understands. God has a plan. Okay. Let's just look at the next thing, which is chapter 6. You can read this on your own because you know the story very well. And it's the feeding of the 5,000, which was probably feeding 15,000 or more, because they just counted the men. So if you consider 5,000 men, add a couple of women and children in for each one, and you've got a whole bunch of people. First of all, we've got to remember something. We don't deserve this, but God dumps out His amazing grace on us. And here's a perfect example. Jesus fed these people who followed Him all over the place and didn't have a clue about what He was talking about. They were willfully ignorant. Why did they follow Him around? For the same reason most people pray today. They got something selfish they want. They wanted food. They wanted Him to fix whatever was wrong with them. But the minute He got in to tell them how to live, hey, you know, you've done gone meddling now. Be quiet there, Master. You're offending people. His disciples actually said that to Him. Hey, look, all these people have left. Better change your message. He looked at them and says, why are you guys still here? That's what He said. You know. But I like verse. Let's see, gotta find this here. Let me give you 5 and 6. Jesus lifted up His eyes, seeing the great multitude coming toward Him. He said to Philip, where shall we buy bread that these may eat? Verse 6. But this He said to test Him, for He Himself knew what He would do. Remember, He understands, and He's got a plan. Why did that kid have his lunch with him that day? You think maybe God put it in that mother's head that morning to pack a little lunch for her kid? Not knowing that, you know, that lunch would feed thousands that day. But look what He did. These people were totally greedy. They were totally selfish. That's what they were. And He fed them. He fed them. He taught them. He healed their sick. Because of grace. He understood, but He had a plan. Okay, let's go on over on that same chapter. We'll wrap up chapter 6 here. And you can tell people this, say, you're not going to believe what we covered in church last night. You won't believe how much we covered. Verse 53. Find it there? Chapter 6, verse 53. Jesus said to them, most assuredly I say to you, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink His blood, you have no life in you. Whosoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood has eternal life, and I will raise him up on the last day. For my flesh is food indeed, and my blood is drink indeed. He who eats my flesh and drinks my blood abides in me, and I in him. As the living Father sent me, and I live because of the Father, so he who feeds on me will live because of me. This is the bread which came down from heaven, not as your fathers ate the manna and are dead. We who eat this bread will live forever. These things he said in the synagogue as he taught in Capernaum. The Jews and the Romans had it all wrong. Just as wrong as the Jews were about the Sabbath, and as wrong as those people were in West Virginia in 1850. Because given the chance, we humans will get anything wrong. We have that gift. We'll get anything wrong. But never forget, God understands, God has a plan. And so he gave. He gave his body, which was hung on the cross. His body was broken. His blood poured out. And it's funny, just like that Roman official, more foreigners understood than his own people. His body was broken, his blood was poured out, and nobody was excluded. Nobody. He didn't, when he fed those thousands on the hillside, did he give it just to the ones who understood what he was talking about? No, he fed everybody. When he died on the cross, he died for everybody. Just for those who got it? Nope. He died for everybody. Understanding. Now you read through this, when you read the parable of the sower and so on and so forth, you realize that he says the majority will never accept. The majority won't. But he says, doesn't matter. I'm doing it for everybody. And this was his plan. He understands, and this was his plan before he ever made anything. Even Lady Wisdom. Lady Wisdom was the first thing he made. Do we fully understand this? No. Do we know exactly what his plans are for our life right now? No, we don't. It's kind of a wild adventure, because we don't know what he's going to do. If anybody had asked me when I stepped out of college 3 years ago what I was going to do, I had it all planned out. I couldn't be farther from that plan right now if I tried. Moving back to Ohio, we talked about this. You're never going to do that. God says, I know that's right. Yeah. But here's something we can rest assured of. God understands. And he's got a plan. And his plan was to come and die for us. Because we deserve it? Because we get it? No. Because he loves us. Just the same reason he healed that man in the pool. Just out of love. Just out of grace. Right? You want to lead us in that communion now? What number is it?
232.
232.
Okay, guys.
Zion, would you go get the grape juice that's in the fridge downstairs? I forgot.